Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. This week we're on location. We'll be visiting the new Carnegie Learning Center in Midtown later in the program, but first it's a stop at the Kingston Library, and with us now is Library Director Margie Minard. Hi, Margie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Now, full disclosure here, I'm married to a librarian, and when we started dating, one of the many things that attracted to me was that she's a librarian, because I love libraries. I have since I was a boy. Let's talk about the history of libraries. They go back thousands of years.
They do. I mean, there's the Library of Alexandria. That's one of the 7 wonders of the world, the ancient world, right up to modern times. There's a huge history of human history in libraries. You're right.
Why? What is the thing in human nature that makes people want to collect information and make it available to other people? What do you think drives that?
I think it's curiosity. Human nature is we're curious. We're constantly learning. We're curious about each other. We're curious about our environment, and collecting knowledge feeds that curiosity.
I think librarians too are sort of charged with maintaining that flow of information, and it's almost a holy position.
I like to think so. I'm honored and flattered to be able to work as a librarian. I think it's the greatest profession in the world, and it's fantastic.
Let's talk about the Kingston Library. We are in a building in Midtown. I think you've been here since the mid-1970s?
About 1978 is when the library moved to this building.
How many patrons do you serve? Do you know?
We serve the entire city of Kingston. So as far as a population, it's about 25,000 people. Card holders is more like 15 to 17,000 people. But definitely a majority of our city population are library card holders.
What services are available at the library besides checking out a book?
So many services. We have services from, I like to tell people, birth to death, really. You can come in, parents bring their babies in for early literacy, story hours, and one-on-one reading, that kind of thing. And then once the kids get into school, we have programs for them. There's literary discussion groups for adults. We have just informational programs for people. If you're curious about Kingston, we sometimes have Kingston history programs. We have summer reading programs. Then we have materials other than books. A lot of people don't know that we have DVDs that you can borrow, that we have audiobooks that you can borrow, that we have magazine subscriptions and newspapers that you can look at. And then there's the whole issue of everything that's going online, and we're sort of pushing our services out into your home through online and remote access services.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, we know that Google and information is moving online, and electronic information, and libraries have really been at the forefront of that whole movement. We have long been proponents of technology and computer access and electronic information. So what libraries are doing now is, because we understand that lives have changed, that people are living more of their lives online, and that people are busier, we're pushing our services out into your homes through the internet. So you can access a lot of library services. You can access downloadable e-audiobooks and e-books for your Kindle and your Nook. You can download those from home. You can do research from home through our databases. You can look at magazines and newspapers online. So libraries have really sort of pushed beyond the 4 walls of their buildings.
Now Kingston is part of the Mid-Hudson Library System?
We are. We're one of the 65 libraries in the Mid-Hudson Library System.
So someone at home could log on to their website, reserve a book, and pick it up here in Kingston?
Yes, any library within the Mid-Hudson Library System, you can pick up a book from any other library. So while you may be a card holder at Kingston, you really have access to the entire system's collection, books, videos, all of it.
Who uses the library? Who is here on a daily basis?
We see everyone here on a daily basis.
It's a great library. It's been here for years. They have everything that I need. The computers and the book collection are great, as well as the workers.
I come here because they have a very large selection of Stephen King books.
They have plenty of reference books for the things that I'm looking for.
This place does have a lot of accessibilities and a lot of opportunities. You just have to know where to look.
Okay.
You're watching Kingston Now. More from the Kingston Library in a moment. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We're at the Kingston Library, and with us is Library Director Margie Minard. Margie, the Huffington Post online newspaper is running a series called Libraries in Crisis. One of the aspects of the series is about a nationwide effort to cut funding to libraries. Kingston seems to be okay for the moment, but as a whole, what does that mean to you as a librarian and to Kingston as a library?
You know, it's interesting because elected officials do often turn to what they consider low-hanging fruit when they're looking at budget cuts and managing budgets. And libraries are sometimes seen as sort of a frill, when really we know as educated people, as librarians, as people who use libraries, that they are essential educational services in any community. And it's really interesting to look at that issue based on facts. You know, in this area, when you look at libraries like Kingston, whose vote goes directly to the people that support it, our budget has passed every year for the last 9 or 10 years. And when you look at communities where they don't have that benefit, where they don't have a direct vote for the people, often those budgets are looking to be cut. And I think elected officials need to look at that nationwide and see that when the people have a voice and a vote, they're saying yes to libraries. And they shouldn't be that sort of firewall between the people who are supporting the library and the libraries. I think they're making a mistake when they cut library budgets, because the people that support those libraries want to say yes and want to pay their tax share.
Do you think sometimes people take libraries for granted? If they were really faced with losing services, they wouldn't really, their response might be, well.
I think absolutely, because I think public libraries, excuse me, have woven themselves so much into the fabric of American life that people do take them for granted. They forget just how much libraries mean to them, to their families, to their communities. And everybody has points in their lives when they don't use their library. I mean, even I, at a point in my life, didn't use the public library. I was using school libraries or university libraries or that kind of thing, or even when I was feeling a little flush, buying books. But we forget that there are, throughout your life, you need your public library, and people will come back around to that eventually. They'll have a child, or they'll retire and realize, maybe I can't buy all those books anymore. But yeah, I mean, people do take them for granted, but I think eventually everyone, all roads lead back to the library.
What is the role of a modern library today?
Well, like I said, libraries have always been essential educational services, and the modern library is still an essential educational service, but we've expanded. We're providing technology, we're bridging that technology divide. There's still a lot of people in our communities that don't have the technology access that maybe other people have. So we're providing computers, internet access, wireless access, that kind of thing, because much of our lives have moved online. Government information is online, job applications are online, even education. My daughter comes home from school with lists of websites to visit to support her education. We're online. So libraries are sort of filling and bridging that gap as well.
It's much easier to carry a list of websites home in your backpack, by the way,
than a textbook. Exactly. Easier to update, too.
Well, as a companion question then, so what is the role of a modern librarian in that society? I mean, how on the edge do you need to be with information services? Librarians
need to be very much on the edge. They need to be at the forefront of information services. I tell newer librarians that, I've been a librarian for a little over, about 20 years now. And my job was simpler when I started. It was not as complex, it was not as varied, but it's so much more exciting now and so much more interesting and challenging than it was. I mean, it's always been a great job, but it's even better now. Librarians need to be smart about a lot of things. They need to understand technology. They also need to understand what their patrons are reading so they can recommend that next book for you. They need to, follow the news and be aware of what's happening. Librarians are smart people typically, and they need to keep challenging themselves.
Yeah. And again, for all this incredible service, the price is, how much does this cost someone to come to the library?
Well, on a daily basis, as you come in the door, it doesn't cost you anything. There is your tax share, your family's tax share, your business's tax share, so you are paying to support the library.
But to come here every day?
But to come here every day, there is no charge.
It's that great price of free.
Free.
Great.
That's
Thanks,
right.
Margie.
You're welcome.
This is Kingston Now, and next we're going to take a quick trip down Broadway to the new Carnegie Learning Center. Stay with us. Welcome back to Kingston Now. The Carnegie Learning Center sits in front of Kingston High School. For years it was the site of the Kingston Library, and then it lay empty and crumbling until a major renovation project restored it to its former glory. Here to tell us more is Andrew Sheber, Vice Principal of Kingston High School and the man who oversees the programs here at the Carnegie Learning Center. Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
So let's start with the building itself. It's spectacular now. What was it like before the
Thank
renovation?
Quite dilapidated. The only inhabitants at that point were some squirrels and a couple of birds. Windows were broken, things were, wood was warped. It was quite nothing but cobwebs and dirt and some graffiti.
And it was like that for a long time, right?
Over 20 years, yeah.
So what was the impetus to restore the building? Where did that come from?
A number of different places. Historic Kingston certainly had an interest in helping us to bring it about. Kevin Cahill contributed his efforts to get this on track. Mayor Satile and Superintendent Kretzinger all kind of worked together to secure funds and to push this project forward.
Now we'll just give people a little background history. It's called the Carnegie Library because back around the turn of the last century, which is unusual to say, but back around the early 1900s, Andrew Carnegie, the billionaire magnate that he was, started to build libraries across the country.
That's correct. They're and they're all over. There's still a few, I think, left in operation as libraries. I know of one in Amsterdam that still has a library. But I've heard some great stories. A lot of local Kingstonians have told me about having come here as kids to read. Kevin Cahill himself told a great story at the dedication of how his grandfather learned English on the speaking stage downstairs. He'd come and hear the newspaper read to him, and that was kind of his way to acclimate as a citizen of the U.S.
Where did the funds come from? I mean, it was a pretty expensive renovation.
It was an expensive renovation. There was a public referendum, so it was nice to know we had the support of the Kingston public. There were grants from a number of different sources and several different revenue streams that came together to make this a reality.
So that's the building aspect of it. What happens at the Carnegie Learning Center, and how is it affiliated with the high school?
Well, it is part of the high school now. We have been, you may have heard, we're a rather large school, roughly 2,100 students here. And as a large school, we're looking at ways to break down to smaller learning communities. So what we've been researching is ways to do that. Last year, we formed a task force to go ahead and do that. And the result of that task force was a number of proposals by existing teachers as they put together plans for how they saw education can move forward in this sort of format. The two bids that were approved were the Global Projects, Project Global, which is an interdisciplinary English, Global Studies, and Art curriculum taught by teachers of each of those disciplines, as well as a Media Communication Arts program, which offers 2 English credits and a Foundation Art credit as well. And each of those programs are both very project-based, experiential learning ideas of education, quite different from the standard chalk and talk and rows type of education.
So that seems like a special thing to offer students. Which students get to participate in that? Do they have to have particularly great grades or show an aptitude for this stuff?
Not at all, not at all. We want students that are interested in learning and interested in finding their voice and interested in exploring what it is to be an educated citizen of the 21st century. So it was open to anybody that met the grade criteria, quite honestly, which ranged from 10th grade through 12th grade. And all they had to do was sign up with their guidance counselors. And we had done some outreach. We had our teachers that were in the program went into classrooms to explain what it was going to be about. We had a public forum where we invited parents to come learn about what we plan to do. And what we have is the results of that.
So you've been open for just a couple months now?
Yep, since the beginning of the school year.
How have the students responded? How are the students who are in the programs responded and the students in the high school?
Students in the program are quite excited. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback of how they are really excited to come here each day. They really like the amorphous style of the program. They get to really dictate a lot of their own learning style, speak to their learning styles, work on projects that augment their particular strengths. There's a much stronger connection, I think, between the students and the faculty that work here. They really have a sense of community here that, quite honestly, we're trying to replicate on a larger basis over at the main high school. students that aren't in the program are curious.
Are they seeing that? Are they looking over
I
and
believe
saying, wow?
so. I believe so. And that's, because we are still in the fledgling months of the program, there's still a lot of curiosity, a little uncertainty about what it is to be a student over here, both from those within the program and those without. So I had some interesting interviews this morning with students from the program asking me questions about how they can have a larger presence in the larger school, ways that they can present their ideas, their work in the community, whether it be in hospitals or nursing homes or within the larger complex.
Sounds terrific, Andrew. This is Kingston Now. More from the Carnegie Learning Center when we return. You're watching Kingston Now, and we're at the Carnegie Learning Center, and joining us now is one of the teachers here, Ted Leach. Hi, Ted.
Hi.
What class do you teach here?
I teach Media and Communications, which is a course that incorporates both 2 English classes and 1 art class, and we kind of integrate everything together.
That's an interesting title for things that combine English and art. How does that work with the media and communications? How does English and art fit into that perspective?
Basically, we take a lot of the core skills that would be taught in a regular English class, such as reading, writing, speaking, listening, and we put it in a context of more contemporary media studies and media production. So, for example, in one of the recent projects that we've done, the biography project, instead of students simply just reading a biography, students are writing and filming profiles of local area residents, and they're putting them together. They're writing, profiles in a sort of more journalistic style. They're putting together 5-minute film segments. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing over here.
Now, this is a new curriculum here
Yes,
at Kingston
correct.
High School. So how did you where did you come up with how the course is going to be? Are there existing courses like this across the country in high schools?
There are some courses like this, but nothing specifically along the lines of what we're trying to create that we've been able to find. Now, having said that, I'm not so arrogant to believe that we're the originators of something like this. I'm sure there are other people doing this sort of thing. What I know other people are doing besides the content is it's more about the way that we're teaching, and that's something, this project-based learning is something that's being replicated in a lot of different schools around the nation that are really trying to find ways to work with today's students.
The project that the students are working on in this first semester, is it a semester-long project that will culminate in them having a finished piece of work?
Yes, it's going to take, I don't think it's going to take them a full semester, but it's definitely going to take a little bit longer than we thought it would at first. But yes, it's going to culminate in an exhibition night where they will exhibit their work to the public. We'll throw the doors open. We'll invite anybody who wants to come by. Hopefully we will be able to show some of the finished pieces on KHS TV, on the web. We'll be able to publish some pieces in local publications. We're hoping to get as wide an audience for our students' work as possible.
The students themselves who are part of the program, one would assume that in this generation they're very media savvy.
They are aware of media. They are steeped in media. That doesn't necessarily mean, however, that they are savvy in media. They don't necessarily understand how media is produced. They don't necessarily understand how to shape media and how to utilize it effectively. A perfect example, they may know how to use a video camera. They may know how to use a still camera to take some digital photos. But there's a big difference between taking a picture to record your night out with your friends and taking a series of photos to tell a story. And that's one of the differences. They understand on a superficial level some of the media, but they don't know how to use it effectively.
So in a sense, they're taking apart the media and looking at it, seeing how it's done.
In part, yes. Now, having said that, there are certainly some students who are extremely skilled. There are students who can run rings around me in Adobe Premiere, for example, which is a video editing program. I don't know much at all about Premiere, but I know how to ask the right questions about why they're doing certain things. And a lot of times in that conversation that we have, that's where learning really happens.
So how does the day begin for the students here at the Learning Center? Do they start in other classes, then migrate over here to their class?
All the students they have regular classes in the main building, periods 1 through 4, and then about 11:05 is when our program starts over here. And the students come over here, and it really varies from day to day and week to week exactly what goes on. Some mornings, like today, we started off with just a short meeting, 5 minutes just to go over a couple announcements. And then the rest of today, the students spent in different committees. They are working on a project this week. Some of them had identified problems and some ideas that they had for how this could work better. And we really threw it back to them and said, okay, well, we're going to give you the week. And here are different committees that you can join up, and everything from exhibition, students wanted their work displayed, to communication. Students were concerned about how we were staying in touch with each other. And we threw it back to them, and they're working on proposals. They're giving presentations tomorrow, and they spent pretty much the whole day working on that. You had students working downstairs, editing video. You had students who went over to interview Mr. Sheber. And there are a lot of different things going on.
So as a teacher in sort of this new arena, new area, what is your observation of how the students are responding to, how they're responding to it?
I think students are very excited. There's a lot of energy over here. I mean, that's one of the things that I think you notice. Anybody coming in here, you'll notice that there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of students who are engaged in work. You're not going to see a teacher standing at the front of the room with a piece of chalk talking. I spend, quite frankly, a lot of my day over here on days like today walking around, observing, asking questions, talking to students, troubleshooting sometimes, but mainly just really trying to support them in the work that they're doing. I gave some instruction. I taught a couple short workshops today, but really it's the students who are highly engaged in what they're doing over here. They work very hard during this program.
Sounds like a terrific program.
It's very exciting.
That's it for Kingston Now this week. We'd like to thank Margie Minard of the Kingston Library and Andrew Sheber and Ted Leach of the Carnegie Learning Center for joining us. I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.